3 full fleet races scheduled for today before another 2 on Sunday, and then only the top 3 teams on points will race in the event final to determine the champion in Abu Dhabi. Before we go racing, let's check in with Stevie Morrison for a look at today's course map.
We're above sunny Abu Dhabi, and let's take a look at the race course the teams will have today. A fast start's going to be more important than ever with a tight first turn. After the slalom that takes place to Mark 2, the boats are able to sail their own course, finding the shortest time between gates. At each gate, they can turn left or right. Remember that sailing boats only go fast when they sail at an angle to the wind, so we see them zigzagging their way around the course to give themselves tactical advantage. It's light wind today, so it's a day for the wing trimmers to take the teams to the finish first.
Well, the good news is that we've still got wind. The difficult thing is that it's really going to be a balance between that H1 mode where they pull one hull out of the water and reduce drag. There have been some boats foiling in the practice run, so I am very hopeful that we'll see that, but it's going to be super difficult with all the disturbed wind around the racetrack. I think as we've seen in practice, that first boat to Mark 1, 1 and 2 are going to really stretch their legs, but that battle in the mid-pack is where the entertainment will be for us. But to me, the best breeze is near the adrenaline lounge, near the crowd, so hopefully plenty of flybys for the crowd that has lining the shores there, but going to be a very difficult day.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Much more from you as the day progresses. Again, we've got 3 fleet races for the entire 10 international fleet, as we are now 2 minutes away after a lengthy wind delay, Stevie. They're now set to go racing, and you know these world-class athletes are ready to do battle out on the water. There's the coaches area. They are now off the water, on shore, all in the same area. Race management ready to give the word, Stevie. It's got to be a lot of nerves out there.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of nerves because I think it's going to be high scoring. It's light winds out there, and as Lisa said, we've got this slalom start, so they're going to go to Mark 1, and then they do nearly a 180-degree turn back towards the fans on the shoreline, and that's going to turn it into a lot of pressure on this start line, an awful lot of pressure. So really, first and second Mark 1 and 2, you're probably gone. You're probably away, should win the race, but if you're in the pack, it's going to be a dogfight.
It's certainly going to be difficult, and as we can see, the box for this starting area is really small, so they don't actually have that much of a run-up, 150 meters from the back of the box to the line.
It's simple. You can't cross the red line until the clock goes 0. We are now 1 minute away from the start of race number 1. 10 points for each race to the winner, Stevie, and a lot of prize money. Remember, $2 million, $7 million for the whole season, so there's a lot of cash and a big trophy at the end of the day.
There's a lot to be done, and I think this start's going to be so crucial.
Umpires, penalty Germany, relative New Zealand, windward boat not keeping clear.
Oh, disaster for the Germans. They're out the back already then with that. They're going to have to start behind the fleet here to clear that penalty off. Now look at this, these F50s are lined up. Denmark controlling things towards this upwind end of the line. He gives himself a safer situation, hopefully to not be in the disturbed air. In this light winds, the disturbed air is a far bigger problem. It's going to roughly knock 4 kilometers an hour off the wind speed. That's a huge thing when there's only 10 kilometers an hour of wind around. Canada dive through the middle. Late run by Phil Robertson. How's he found a gap in there? Denmark at the top of the line. Watch for the line to turn white. It's going to be Denmark, Canada out the middle. Watch for that line to turn white. And we're going to be racing here in Abu Dhabi. Oh, it's New Zealand. Brilliant acceleration from the Kiwis. They've jumped off that start line. Denmark at the top of the line. Nathan said he'd been working on his starting. They're going to have a slower angle into Mark 1 than New Zealand, but I think Denmark and New Zealand are going to be fighting for first at Mark 1, and this could be crucial with Slingsby hanging on the inside.
So better speeds than possibly we anticipated just 30 minutes ago as they approach mark number 1. You've got New Zealand, you've got Australia on the inside, and you've got Denmark on the outside.
Crucial here, if Australia can hold on to an overlap with Australia, then they can own the mark. Can Australia get in there overlapped? It's really tight. Slingsby doesn't think so. First going to be New Zealand, second for Australia, and Denmark on the outside. It could get hard for them from here.
Wing down out of this, guys. Hold up.
Now on that first leg there, we're seeing the Kiwis doing 28 kilometers an hour, so that's too slow to get foiling, but it is right on the edge.
It's the magic number, Todd. 29 kilometers an hour, 30 kilometers an hour. You'd hope to foil. But here we go, they're heading now, another reaching leg. They're going to sail back across the wind towards the fan on the shoreline, and it's advantage to those first 2 boats, 3 boats really, they've stretched away. Look at the pack, bottom of our screen. USA, Spain, France, Canada and Switzerland tied together by a piece of string, and there's really not much wind there. Germany have got no rights to dive inside here. They should go round last, but will there be opportunity with Spain looking really slow? Will the Germans be aggressive and try and cut the corner inside?
Probably get H1 here if you want. I'm going to go down. Okay, I have to say we're going past these guys a little bit, Eric. Yeah. And stay in breeze. No one's on ley line.
Okay, that
Stay in
answers
breeze
the
behind,
question.
and hopefully we get the inside on the next zone.
Stuart Biffle here, he's planning ahead here.
On board with the Germans.
And the Kiwis, they're starting to look good. H1 mode, so that's one hull up in the air, and they're stretching that lead.
Look at them stretch away, Todd. They're in clear wind. They've probably got 3-4 kilometres an hour more wind. That's going to be potentially 6-7 kilometres an hour more boat speed.
And this is that new look, that slalom kind of look as you go to mark number 1, then turning right back to gate number 2, and then it's on to the normal race course here in Abu Dhabi. So a little bit of a change on things, and it is Peter Burling and the Kiwis first out, and they have got, as we've said before, Stevie, the clean air and plenty of room to work.
Big speed, of course. When you're just sailing in a straight line, there's no tactical advantage. You've only really got the thing of trying to trim your wing, trim your sails as efficiently as possible. But if you've got less wind because you're behind them and in their disturbed wind, you just can't hope to go as fast. So for New Zealand and their fans, it's great news. Australia, Slingsby, has he left the door open for Giles Scott on board Emirates GBR? Looks like he might. Oh, here we go. Protest coming from Slingsby. He's got no room in there on board Great Britain.
Swimming down.
Be a penalty, but he should just have to drop back behind Emirates Great Britain, so this won't be too Emirates will have to drop back behind Australia, sorry, so it shouldn't be too big a penalty. I think what's great here, Todd, Giles Scott, right hand side of the screen, is driving. He can't actually see through that solid wheel towards Australia, so he's asking Ian Jensen and Luke Parkinson on the other side of the boat, where are the other guys so I don't crash into them.
So still no penalty coming for Emirates GBR as Australia maintains that second position. It's New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain, Denmark, and Switzerland, the top 5.
I think because they never quite overtook and they dropped back quite quickly behind, the penalty was instantly absolved. That's the penalty in Sail GP, is you just need to drop back behind the person you've infringed again. It all cleared up pretty quickly for them. But here we go, New Zealand, they're choosing to turn right. Lisa said there was more wind in towards the fans in the adrenaline lounge there, but the problem with that is it's another manoeuvre and you're going to sail through the disturbed wind from the fleet. So New Zealand, well, there's a simple saying in sailing, keep it simple, stupid. And when you're out in front, it's an awful lot easier to keep it simple than it is for those other boats in the pack. But the Kiwis are doing a very, very nice job of that at the moment. That's a big lead at gate 3.
Not the biggest speeds we've seen in a Sail GP, but right now the Kiwis have picked the right lane and they've got that start. And every skipper we talked to, Stevie, said the start is going to be massive. Emily, they did exactly what they had to do. They timed it perfectly at the line.
And not only did they have a brilliant start, but the thing that we've noticed with the Kiwis when we've looked back over the data from this season so far is that they excel with this 29-metre wing. Despite breaking it earlier in the season, when they are racing with this wing, we typically see them sail the shortest amount of distance compared to all of the other teams. Now, part of that is because they sail this high, slow mode, so that means they're sailing closer to the wind, but at a slower speed. They also seem to be tactically superior in this. They really find all those shifts that they need.
Australia getting awfully close at a snail's pace, albeit, Stevie, but Australia and Rockwell, Denmark probably getting a little closer than race management want.
Well, Australia had the right way, and I think the thing to remember in this light wind is that you steer the boat with a rudder underneath the bottom of the boat. Now, if there's no water going around that because you're moving really slow, it's hard to steer, so it's really, really hard to turn the boat. Tricky situation for Denmark. Great Britain did have the right of way there, so I wouldn't, again, there's a lot of incidents taking place here. It'll be interesting to see if Denmark gets away with that move. Top of screen, Canada, they turn left. Up to second place, the Canadians. Could be a good move for Phil Robertson here. Done a great job of finding space. Look in the pack. Oh, my Lord. It's such slow motion. Denmark, yeah, they get a penalty. That's versus Great Britain. That's going to be really costly. They had to give room for Great Britain to go inside. They just couldn't avoid it. They're going so slowly out there at the moment. These tactical decisions take place a long way in advance. Denmark, first to turn away, trying to get rid of that penalty.
They also have to be so careful not to cause contact, because the rules in Sail GP are pretty strict when it comes. If there's contact, it's not just a penalty in the race, you can end up with penalty points.
Well, that's a great point, Emily, because actually it's worth mentioning that in training yesterday, the Swiss did have contact, and they've actually started the racing here with -4 points for that penalty point. So that's something that we'll see when we get to the scores in a minute, Todd. You won't need to be too confused when you see that on the board. But yeah, Australia, they're stretching away. Denmark find themselves back in the pack after a great start.
And meanwhile, back up at the top, the Kiwis are already rounding the next gate, sailing at 20 kilometers an hour.
The rich keep getting richer, and right now the wealthy are the Kiwis, as they are in front already through the next gate, heading back in. They could possibly lap some teams, Stevie, as they make their way down the left side of the course on your screen. Of course, Sail GP powered by Mother Nature. Mother Nature right now in a bit of a finicky move, not providing the pressure they need, but they're making the most of it, going in that H1 mode, flying that hole.
Well, look, 12 kilometers an hour of wind, and they're up at 28 kilometers an hour. It's incredible, the efficiency of these boats when they're in space. But we saw how when the boats were clustered together and there's very little wind, they're barely moving, find yourself some space, and this Kiwi boat's absolutely flying along. But for Pete Burling, Blair Tuke, Liv Mackay, they're going to be very, very happy with what they see. And probably the coaches on the shore right now, Ray Davis, Josh Jr., aren't going to be having to say too much to them other than well done.
H2's good for
Canada up to second here, Todd. That's a great move from a mid-pack position to get themselves up into second.
Like 5 of 6, as the majority of the fleet will make the turnaround gate number 4, then it's back down to the course, and then the left-hand turn to the finish line, as a nice tight crossing there between Canada and Australia, as the Canadians, under the guise of Phil Robertson, currently sitting in second place. Remember, they finished in 3rd at the last event down in Dubai.
I just feel they're real confident sailors on that Canadian team as well. When they're on fire, they're absolutely on fire here. The German crew, they'll be looking for a good result. Sat in the pack, 5th place. 3rd for Australia, 4th for France. But look how tight it is. Switzerland, they have the right of way here. Germany have got to be careful. Great Britain have got to keep clear. Denmark are going to be able to spin inside. They've somehow managed to keep themselves in the race on board the Danish boat after that penalty at the bottom gate. It's so congested in the pack. But these points from 5th to 9th are absolutely crucial. When we look at the end of the weekend, it will be which teams can convert an 8th into a 6th and gain those 2 points. Hopefully, a lot of the teams will get their chance of winning. Back round, look at the speed. One hubble up in the air on board Emirates Great Britain, nearly double the speed. They're going to roll over the top of Denmark. But tactically, is that going to work out for them? Sailing more distance on Emirates Great Britain right now, but they're sailing at an awful lot faster.
Meanwhile, at the bottom of the course, it is the Kiwis who have made the turn for the finish line, as the rest of the fleet tries to track them down. It won't happen in race number 1. They'll have their opportunities in races 2 and 3. But as they slowly approach the finish line, the story of this race has been the start. Absolutely nailing it are the Kiwis, and the winners of the last event. Peter Burling and company will move on, and they will claim race number 1 of the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Sail Grand Prix.
And just behind them, we've got the Australians and Canadians coming towards that final mark. Now, they split around that top gate, so taking opposite sides on that final leg. And it looks like it's benefited the Australians going in close to shore by the adrenaline.
Canada's got one hull up here, Emily. It's going to be tight. The Canadian boat's faster at the minute, but the Australian boat's got the right of way. Australia, tactical advantage, but Canada's going to try and go around the outside. I hope Phil Robertson's not talking to me there.
Good at the moment. He's slow, right, Philippe? How slow is he?
Oh, do you hear that, Todd? That's Phil Robertson asking his coach about the tactical situation. Philippe Presti's on shore, looking at the computer screen, showing where the boats are relative to each other. Phil's able to press a button, talk to his coach. Incredible, the technology out here, as he now tries to shoot round the outside.
And Stevie, because he has more speed, he's able to avoid getting the penalty, and he can go right around Tom Slingsby.
Yeah. Round the outside, round the outside. Great move by the Canadians there, and just so interesting to hear him actually communicating with his coach mid-race in a massive tactical situation. It's a pretty unique feature.
Well, the top 3 finishers in race number 1 here in Abu Dhabi were the same 3 that finished in the final in Dubai, and it is Canada that will take second place.
Oh, Todd,
and
it's a penalty
comes on.
Wow. Penalty, they obviously think that they gave not enough room to Australia to make the turn. Well, that's going to certainly raise an eyebrow from Phil Robertson.
Nice work, guys. Wow, we've got to stand here.
Oh, Phil is not happy with that one, but as he says, he'll drop back behind Australia, so still a great result. Look at the pack here. France, they've worked up to fourth. On the inside of, this time it's Denmark. They this time have the right of way on Emirates Great Britain. Nathan Outridge, well, he's scrapped pretty hard in this race to stay in position number 4 as it sits at the moment. It's all going to come down to the re-acceleration after this mark. Straight line drag race with Great Britain and Denmark, but I think the Danish are in pole position, and the Germans, well, they might get a chance to overtake Emirates Great Britain as well. Look at that. People are happy with a 3rd or a 4th in this condition because they're so easy to get a finish right at the back of the pack. Denmark, well, they've done well. That could have easily been a disaster after the penalty at gate 3.
So Nathan Outridge filling in for the great Dane. Nikolai Sehested steers the Danes into a top 5 position after France finishes in 4th. And now the race is on for 6th place, and it looks like the Germans are just going to edge past Emirates GBR.
Just re-accelerated quicker, a little bit closer to the wind. They got the next gust of wind before Emirates Great Britain. Switzerland.
Watch out in the coach booth and not keep your mic on because we hear everything behind you.
The Swiss come through in 8th. The USA will grab 9th, and Spain will grab 10th.
Disappointing for Spain, that one, Todd. I'd like to think of them as a light wind specialist. Tom Slingsby alluded to it. This is potentially one of the last light wind events of the year. Spain really need points. They look so good early season. They've had a mid-season blip, and that's not the way to start this event for them.
Spain currently in 6th place overall. The winners in Los Angeles months ago. They currently sit on 33 points, but here they find themselves dead last in 10th. So the debrief is now on. It's going to be a short turnaround for race number 2, but the big winners in this one, New Zealand. They get out to a great start, and they stay away from the rest of the crowd as they take the win ahead of Australia and Canada, the top 3.
So as we can see today, that start is critical. Now the Canadians came into that with a parking lot of boats in front of them. They spotted a gap and threaded the needle. Luckily, because everyone was moving so slowly, they were managed to weave through and gain a decent start. But it was the Kiwis and the Danish that really stole the show here. Close to the line, not heaps of speed, but still faster than the boats below. New Zealand, 3 meters off of the line, but it was just enough to get to Mark 1 first and hold that lead the whole way round.
Well, and how important being at Mark 1 first is. It just gives you that advantage of sailing in clear wind, and if you're in clear wind, you've got more wind. We talked about it a little bit in the pre-start, but those boats stuck back in the pack, if you're in the disturbed wind of the boat in front of you, you can estimate that you're losing 4 kilometers an hour of wind. That's the wind is our horsepower. You're losing nearly half your horsepower when there's only this light breeze, and you can see in the pack there, barely any breeze. It's just an absolute fight. So the big lesson today, how do I get clear air? How do I get maximum horsepower to get my boat going as fast as possible if you want to take the race win?
Now, it's pretty obvious looking at these numbers why the Kiwis won that race. Average speed, 18.6 kilometers an hour, while second place Australia down at 15.9. They also sailed the shortest distance and sailed the least number of maneuvers. The Aussies sailed in a slightly different mode, more maneuvers, hence why their speed was down, but clearly spotted some good shifts that managed to get them round and do the overtakes when necessary. Little disappointing for the Canadians, sailing really well, but losing out on that final penalty.
Right now we send it down on the water, and Lisa Darmanin with the winners of race number 1.
Take us through this start.
Not quite the good word I was looking for, Stevie. I was hoping for big win building, but that's okay. We are 93 seconds away from racing race number 2 here. And Stevie, I wonder if they've learned their lesson, all these teams, because last race they really crowded that line early, and it seemed like everyone was almost hitting the brakes to back off.
I think there's an element of that, but I just think in this light winds, if you're at the front, you want to have a forward position to try and hold control of things.
So 1:10 to go before the start of race number 2 here in Abu Dhabi. The winners of race number 1 were New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, the top 3, exactly how it went down at the last race in Dubai.
I think the interesting thing, the tricky thing perhaps on this, Scott, Lisa talked about the wind shifting. That means the way they can line up towards the start line is different. The winds was coming from more of the bottom right-hand side of our screen. It's now coming from the bottom left-hand side of the screen as you look at it. So that means their angle is a lot more up the line. They're all almost sailing parallel to that start line. They're able to be really, really close, barely making any process. I quite like where Denmark is at the moment. New Zealand, well, he's on a wing and a prayer out the back there. He needs a hold to open up, but he should be able to be fast at the start line. 25 seconds to go. Denmark look well positioned. France and Germany have good control mid-line, but they're going to struggle to accelerate from there. Can New Zealand find a gap? I don't see a gap for them to go through right now. It's so congested at the bottom of the line. It's Denmark top of the line looking for a quick acceleration. Germany, USA, how fast can they wind it up? Watch for the line to turn white, and we're going to be go on race 2 here in Abu Dhabi. Good start there. Germany, USA and Denmark. Denmark are already hull up. USA are hull in the air. Germany have got the boat tipped over and reducing that drag already. It's now a sprint to Mark 1. USA and Denmark should be in good shape from here. But Denmark on the outside, they need to break clear of the pack or they'll be stuck on the outside of the turn. Can Spain accelerate and get in from there? New Zealand and Australia out the back. They got a job on.
The top 3 teams from race number 1 are representing the back 3 right now, with Emirates GBR also joining that party, and all eyes on mark number 1. The USA look to be in control of this one. Stevie, do they have the speed?
USA, they're not going to have the speed, but they've got the inside. They're going to have the right of way to turn at the mark. Denmark look like they're just clear ahead of Spain. 1 and 2 should be USA and Denmark. That was so tight. Spain will be able to go around here third, but for France now it's hard, and even harder for Switzerland. They're not entitled to turn on the inside. They're going to have to slow the boat. This is the handbrake turn. Denmark, round second. Oh, the breath of relief you'll be feeling on those first 2 boats now. But USA, is this the chance for Taylor Canfield to take his first race win in Sail GP? You're not going to get a better chance than leading at Mark 1.
No higher for me, no higher. No higher, it's just no win. Don't go any higher.
Victor Diaz, he's talking about there not being any wind. That's just because they're going back under the other boats. Those huge skyscraper 29-meter wings blocking the wind, but they'll be the first boat heading straight back towards the adrenaline lounge, straight back across the wind again here. Remember, it's a slalom start. They're going to sail across the wind one more time. First to get clear wind will be USA. That means they'll be first to accelerate, and look at the gap open up already. Big lead for USA, Denmark in second, but New Zealand and Australia. Consistency's going to be king today. And if you're not first, you're last on board New Zealand.
New Zealand, the winners of race number 1, find themselves in 10th place right now. Remember, we've got 1 more race still to go. You get 10 points for a win in these races, trying to build your account up to make the top 3 after 5 fleet races. The Americans now out in front. Get to know the names: Taylor Canfield, Sarah Stone, Victor Diaz de Leon. They are on board that team. Gone is Jimmy Spithill. They've revamped that squad. Spithill now trying to develop a team for Italy, and now it is the Americans leading. Nathan Outteridge and the Danes in second, and Spain sitting in third.
Right turn here now. The course opens up for these boats. Look at the view for the fans there. There's no ripples on the rosé on that shoreline, but they're going to be getting pretty excited seeing these F50s coming so close by them in the adrenaline lounge there. Incredible view for the fans as we see. First to turn, USA. Don't be surprised to see Rockwool Denmark try and turn inside, and Spain to try and turn inside them. It's about now finding clear wind, trying to keep the speed, and for those first boats, it's good shape, but look, still out the back. And now a long way behind Australia, New Zealand, Canada and Great Britain. They've got to turn things around.
It's a really difficult manoeuvre there after that second mark, because you're manoeuvring in all of that disturbed air, but also really trying to push to get that boat back into that H1 mode and continue that lead for those first boats. But when you're manoeuvring down there, you're dropping to 5 kilometers an hour of boat speed.
When we talk about H1, what a great view that is there. They've got 1 of the 2 hulls on these F50s up in the air. If you do that, you half the drag from the boat, so that's going to mean you're a lot faster. Of course, what we want to see is none of the hulls in the water, Todd, but today, Mother Nature's just not delivering us that. It's delivering us a tactical battle. It's delivering us a real street fight on the start line. And here we go. Taylor Canfield, USA. Keep it simple, stupid. Turns right. Going to stay in clear wind. To the right of your screen, where Spain are turning now, they're going to have to sail back through the disturbed wind. It's being blocked by all those F50s. There'll be less wind where Spain are, but It's a short-term loss. Will it be a long-term gain?
Stevie, and for some of these teams like New Zealand, like Australia, like Canada, who won the first race, were in the top 3, now they're in damage control because they are losing valuable points, finishing 8th, 9th, possibly even 10th. For the Americans, who finished in 9th in the first race, this is a big opportunity for them to add some points to their account.
I think this is going to be the story of the weekend, Todd. Ultimately, when we get to Sunday and we get to making it to those final 3 places, it's an average of your points over the weekend. Consistency's the king. So I think what will define the weekend is who can turn a bad race into a good race. Now, Canada did a phenomenal job of that in race 1. They were coming 5th, 6th, and they turned it into a 3rd. Could have been a 2nd. But yeah, Denmark, suddenly that result they got in race 1, where they got a 5th, to have a 2nd now, suddenly it looks pretty clever. USA, bad first race. Good second race, their average is okay. It's all about averages, but the real battle will be who can turn a 9th into a 6th, who can turn an 8th into a 6th, a 5th, who can make those little gains around the race course, because the opportunities are very, very limited when you're stuck back in the pack.
2, 1, backing up.
And here from our Oracle Cloud data, we can see that the US on the bottom of the screen, 10 kilometers an hour of breeze. Spanish have gone right close into shore and only have 8k an hour of pressure there. So they're going slower, but they're taking it right up into the shore to see if they can make the next gate in only 1 maneuver. Now, we saw them at the bottom of the course do that extra maneuver while the Americans continued on straight, which was very costly, but clearly thought they might get a bit more pressure out that side.
And you weren't kidding when you said the Spanish were taking it right against the wall. They went and gave full Instagram moments for a lot of folks.
Maybe they missed lunch, Todd.
Wow.
They were trying to
drive-through service.
Yeah.
So leg 4 of 6, it'll be through the next gate up here, then down to the bottom of the course, and then a left-hand turn to the finish line. The Americans in control of this one. There you see the lead right now coming up on about 100 meters with Denmark in second place, Spain coming in on that left side of your screen, but it is the Americans in complete control of this race, and a great job by Taylor Canfield. We heard from all the drivers, the start is the key, and he took that to heart.
He started really well, and as I say, I think, you know, Taylor Canfield, this whole crew is a hugely talented crew. The big question for them is going to come when we get to Sydney, when we're in a fast, high-speed foiling event. This is kind of in his wheelhouse. Displacement, sailing, a little bit slower, tactical racing. It's perfect for them coming into LGP. The questions are going to come when we get to Sydney. How can they handle the F50 when it's doing 80, 90 kilometres an hour, not 20? But Spain, big gain on that upwind. There was more wind, as Lisa said, in by the fans on the shoreline there. So it's a gain for Spain. Right of way with France versus Denmark, but Denmark look like they're clean ahead. Still, consistency's king, but Diego and that Spanish crew, they need a good one after a last in race 1.
So you got to ask the question now for Spain, Stevie, as they went towards the wall, as Emily pointed out, is the juice worth the squeeze? I mean, did they sacrifice so much more now, and it's going to pay off with the side?
Well, that's right. It's always a compromise. Do they go back where they found more wind, which was by the left-hand side of our screen, where the US team are at the moment? What they've done is they've chosen to do less maneuvers. Every time you turn the boat through the wind, be that going into the wind or away from the wind, you lose distance, roughly 6 seconds, 7 seconds of speed. And in this light winds, to re-accelerate so hard.
We had a nightmare just now on the left-hand side of the course for the Americans. So the British team, they're coming on the previous leg towards the American team, and they have right of way. So the Americans had to maneuver to get around them, and in doing so, drop down to 5 kilometers an hour.
Look how slow they still are.
So that could be a huge gain to that Spanish team on the far right.
And this would be a monster gain for Spain. Remember, they finished dead last in race number 1, with the Americans just ahead of them in 9th. So both of these teams scrapping for those points with a third race still on the schedule.
So when they, here we go, Taylor, let's hear what he says.
Miles in front of us here.
Well, I'm not sure about that, Taylor, to be perfectly honest. And right of way at the moment sits with USA. So if it's close, Spain have got to keep clear of the US. And we know Taylor's a 2-3 times world match race champion. He is not going to be afraid of an aggressive move. Spain start to turn the boat up. They accelerate. They're going up to H1. They're going to be a lot faster than USA, but they've got to go round the outside of them here. Here we go. Look at the speed difference from lifting that hull out. Maneuver by the USA. They hold that inside position. They're going to block the wind to Spain, but can Spain get round? They've fallen off that mode quite slowly there. They're going to slow as they drop a hull in, but can they get round the outside of the USA? Massive moment for the US team here. I think they've turned that US boat quite early if they want to be fast in.
Trying to get to that circle first to see who has priority. It looks like Spain is going to get over the top of them.
Well, USA are going to have the right of way if they can get there, but Spain are so much faster. And look at that gap. That is not a Phil Robertson-sized gap. That's massive. So we shouldn't hear from Craig Mitchell on this one. That's a big gap. For Phil, looking at the debrief later, that's a big gap. You're not going to get the umpires involved on that, but yeah, Spain.
Diego Botín and the Spanish, who saved their best for last as they come in on the penultimate leg, and they get around the Americans, who had more than a 100-meter lead, but it will be Spain that will pick up the victory here, barring any major incident. The USA will come into second, which is a great finish for them. They'll have a second to go with their ninth, but it is Spain that comes back from dead last in race number 1. The Spanish claim the win in race number 2 here in Abu Dhabi.
Well, right now, Spain, who were last in race 1, and New Zealand, who were first in race 1, are last in race 2. So it shows us it's going to be a bit of a street fight. It's going to be hard work out there, but that was a horrible, horrible moment there as we see back in the pack. The US, well, they've done well with second, but look, France have put an aggressive attack on board the Danish here. We didn't see how this situation evolved. If France were overlapped with Denmark, then Denmark need to give room to France. By the way Denmark are sailing, I think they probably were. That must have been an aggressive move by the French there. Really pushing hard, and how important are these points going to be when we get to the end of the weekend?
France finishing 4th in race number 1. This would give them a 3rd in race number 2, so they'd have a great average with that 4 and 2. Denmark finished 5th, so Stevie, probably a smart move by Nathan Outteridge not to fight with Quentin Delapierre and the French to battle and possibly get a penalty. He says, oh, you know, I'll take the 4th, that's fine.
Well, Nathan, if he's got anything, he's got a bit of Asian experience on his side, that is for sure. He knows these mistakes you can make. You can be too aggressive in this light winds. Quentin was aggressive, he made it work for him. That played out, but Nathan, the Danish crew, clearly missed that first move by the French. A little bit slow to react. Perhaps that's a sign of a new crew coming together, but yeah, don't then throw away more. If you've lost 1, don't turn that into losing 3. Germany up to 5th. Consistent day for Eric Heil. He'll be in the mix.
Canada salvaging them, or they were back in 8th place. Now they're up to 6th place as France comes through to claim that top 3 position. Nathan Outteridge filling in for Nikolai Sehested at the wheel. He brings it across in 4th place, with the Germans now looking at 5th.
We've got a match race between Australia and New Zealand here. Tom Slingsby trying to push the Kiwis off the course. He's trying to stop the Kiwis getting an overlap into this mark here. They're going to go off to the left of our screen. Here you go, Australia turns.
Look at this.
Oh, New Zealand have to turn away and actually turn the boat all the way through the wind because they were worried about ending up in a crash with Emirates New Zealand. Look at that, aggressive from Slingsby, and that's how important. It's still 1 point. It might be 9th and 10th, but it's still better off to have 9 points. To get the 1 point at the back there.
And I'm sure Tom Slingsby was just telling Pete Burling, just, hey, it's good to be back at SailGP. Just want to come over and say hello. Give him a little La Cheeserie.
Oh, I'm sure it would have been a very friendly exchange out there. There's no doubt about that, Todd. Tricky there on board Emirates Great Britain. That's a couple of races in the pack now. They look good in practice, but little mistakes. Not quite hitting the start can make a big difference. And yeah, you know, they're going to get a point advantage by being ahead of New Zealand. By doing that for Australia, every point is going to count when we come to adding them up tomorrow before the final race.
So Australia and New Zealand, they were the top 2 teams in race number 1. They're the bottom 2 teams in race number 2, Stevie. They are even on points now.
I can't wait to see the results. I know we've only had 2 races, but I think you'll find everyone's within a couple of points.
Yeah.
Everyone's had a good one, everyone's had a bad one. And there's just going to be a couple of teams.
And as we've said before, how bad is your bad one as we get to Sunday?
Exactly. How bad is your bad one? How do you turn a bad one into a good one?
That would have been past us otherwise.
So Australia will bring it across in 9th place with the winners of race number 1, the Kiwis, and the winners of the last event in Dubai. Here in Abu Dhabi, they finish in 10th place, and that's just how quick things can turn in SailGP. Winners of race 1 finished dead last in race number 2, and that sets up the all-important 3rd and final race of the day, which is coming up shortly.
So one of the most important things we are seeing out there today is the importance of keeping it clean. They cannot afford to get penalties out on the water today and maneuvering as much as they can to avoid it, especially at these marks. So the Spanish had a really nice clean rounding. They managed to get round just ahead of the French and Germans and cut straight in front of the French team there as they had the rights. that meant the French, you see them here doing this little wiggle to slow themselves down, doing everything they can not to run into the Spanish in front of them because they're faster. But by keeping it clean, it allowed them to sail as fast as they can to Mark II and ultimately get that second place.
Well, and it was a tight race. The USA, it looks so good for Taylor Canfield and this new USA crew, but an unforced error on that downwind. They got tangled up with the fleet coming back upwind. It's a small race course. You've got to have your head on stalks out there. Diego Botín, well, he sailed very much with the attitude of, I'm going to sail on my own, I'm going to sail in space, I'm going to try and sail fast. We've seen that. If you can stay in cleaner winds, you're going to sail around quicker, and Spain did that so well. It meant they really minimised their manoeuvres out there on the course. Got round the outside of USA, and if there was a clutch race where you needed to deliver, Diego Botín and that Spanish crew, this could be a massive race in their season. They managed to turn things around from a last in race one. They got a win. Can they keep the momentum going? They need it.
And here are our numbers straight from the Oracle Cloud. The Spanish team taking the highest average speed with 17.6 kilometers an hour, and also sailing one of the shortest distances at 2.9. Now still, none of the teams foiling out there, so it's all about that balance between speed and distance, but also keeping the maneuvers down wherever possible. The US team did have one of the higher numbers of maneuvers, but ultimately it allowed them to sail into more pressure and keep hold of the lead for most of the race.
So let's take a look at those standings right now after two events. And how about this, Steve? We just said it's going to be all over the place. Look at the logjam. Pretty much 8 teams in the running, all of them separated by 4 points from 15 to 11. Right now it is France, Rockwell, Denmark, and Canada, your top 3 teams. So if this was the end of the 5 races, those would be the 3 teams in the event final. But 2 points out, you've got Spain, USA, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, all with a chance. Emirates GBR on the outside looking in, and of course Switzerland starting down some points early because of the contact in practice racing. They got a bit of a hole to dig out. But wow. I guess that's a no. So we're going back as Emirates GBR looking very good right now as they try to put themselves into position. They come into the box hot, Stevie. We're under 140 now to go before the start of the 3rd and final race. Yeah, and I think to explain just what happened there, our comms were going through on the boat as well. So that wasn't Rob and Ben being rude. That was just, you know, we needed to give the sailors on board a bit of space to prepare. As we can see, 90 seconds now or under to the start. And this pre-race waltzing dance manoeuvres has been happening nearly 3 or 4 minutes. You could hear the strain almost in Nathan's voice 4 minutes out. And that's because decisions you make 4 minutes before the start will affect where you're positioned now. As we come back to the start, Germany, they're in a lot of space. Nathan, well, he's done the right job. He's already leading the fleet back, similar to where he was before. So they're all positioned now. How does this last 60 seconds play out?
1 minute to the start.
1 minute away from the 3rd and final race of the day here at the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Sail Grand Prix. And right now it's anyone's game, everyone in the hunt right now. We've had 2 races, topsy-turvy, with New Zealand winning the first race, finishing 10th in the second race, Spain in 10th in the first race, winning the second race.
Here we go. We can see that blue turquoisey arrow on there. That's where our computer system, our data tells us the optimum place to start. If you start there at speed, you have the best angle and the best speed relative to the distance to Mark 1. However, the wind is coming from the bottom of our screen, blowing down. Anyone towards the top of our screen risks being in disturbed wind from those boats. You're safer at the top of the line, but you're going to have more distance to sail. Canada, they're early here, 16 seconds to go. Denmark well positioned, Great Britain well positioned. It's all about timing now. New Zealand out the middle of the line again. Who's got their timing right? No room for Germany at the top of the line here. White's going to turn, line's going to turn white here, and watch for them out the middle of the line.
62 wind angle. Go straight.
Perfect from Emirates, Great Britain there at the start. Canada get off the line well, so does Denmark. New Zealand are in the optimum position if they can accelerate in the middle, though. They're going to have less distance to sail, and they've got a chance to be on the inside.
So Emirates GBR put themselves in a perfect position here in the 3rd and final race. Their new driver, Giles Scott, at the helm, stepping in for Ben Ainsley. Now, can they turn this into something special? Coming up on mark number 1.
I like where Spain are at the minute, Todd. They've accelerated accelerated so well, and they're on the inside. They own the corner as they get to Mark 1. Denmark, GBR, Switzerland are all trapped outside. It's going to be Spain first. New Zealand are entitled to go round second. They're going to have to work hard. USA on the inside. Wow, there's some tight overlaps. I'm not sure if USA have got room in there, but Taylor Canfield, he's going to drive it like he stole it. He spins the boat inside. Has he got the right of way? We'll find that out afterwards. But Spain, New Zealand, take a breath, relax on board those boats. You got the lead. That's all you could want at this point. As Australia and Slingsby finds himself at the back of the again, and he's not entitled to get in ahead of the Canadians, I don't think. He had to be overlapped to be able to go round. Look how slow it is when you're in the pack.
So everyone comes to a screeching halt as they just sprint towards that Mark 1. Phil Robertson out there directing traffic, letting everyone know this is my space, please stay away.
Do some boards here. Got to get the French room, mate. Yeah, got it.
Go. They're just trying to work out who's got the right of way to be in there. And as soon as you're on the outside, like Canada were, they went from hero to zero in a split second. And there's just so much disturbed wind, all hidden in behind those. But it's like being stood behind a skyscraper. You just don't feel the wind there is. But if you're in Spain, you're walking down the fresh country road in the breeze, sailing away.
And for Canada as well there, it's not just about avoiding that penalty with the French team. It's also about making sure that you're set up afterwards for a good run to the next mark. If they forced themselves around the outside and got stuck behind the French, then they'd still be in all of that turbulent wind. But by letting them go, they can sit behind and then a racing line to the next mark.
Yeah, great point, Emily, because look at 5th place Emirates Great Britain there. They've just gone off screen, unfortunately, but they're going to be in the disturbed wind of the whole fleet. Effectively, they've got less potential horsepower. There's only 10 kilometres an hour of wind. We can see that on our top left there. Anyone not in that train of boats is just going to be in even less wind, potentially only 50% of the horsepower that's available out there.
As they make the slow drive past the Adrenaline Lounge, it is Spain out in front. There you see the Kiwis in second, the two winners of the two races earlier, and then the Americans, Stevie. Keep an eye on Taylor Canfield and company. They're just sneakily having a good race here as we come into this third and final race of the day.
I'll tell you what we've seen in these first two events so far of the US team and Taylor Canfield. Taylor Canfield can start a boat.
Yep.
He has got off that start line very, very well. Victor's clearly learning the wing, and this is a great first day for them. As I say, we're in that slower tactical racing. It's good news for a new crew like that. As we see again, look, the disturbed wind, look how slow Emirates Great Britain are relative to those people in more wind, but it's going to be fighting hard. Can he stay ahead of Australia? No, he can't, but now the course opens up. This is the chance for Giles Scott and his crew to get back in the race. It's not going to be easy from here.
H2 and soaking. H2 soak.
Yeah, we've got 45 metres to the boundary, 40.
Warrington.
The boundary on the screen.
Comms on board Emirates GBR as they go past the Adrenaline Lounge with plenty of fans there. And right now, they've got to find a way, Stevie, to get into damage control. They've got to somehow turn that 8th into maybe a 5th or a 6th. Even a 4th would be fantastic for them.
Yeah, they're just finding themselves on the outside of a lot of these turns, really. I'm surprised they didn't just spin the boat a bit quicker then, try and keep some clearer wind. They're once again on the downwind side of the French, on the downwind side of the Australians, they'll be in disturbed wind. So maybe they can cling on and dive inside at the bottom here. But right now, Spain, they've turned right. New Zealand, well, they're going back towards that side of the course where Spain made a big gain here. So it's going to be interesting how this one plays out.
My wing.
Spain, here we go. Look, right-hand side of our screen. Canada coming downwind. They turn towards New Zealand, and they're going to make a bit of a meal of that.
And here we've got it, there's live wind speed on the Spanish and Kiwi boats. So the Spanish are currently in slightly less wind, 10 kilometers an hour. The Kiwis only have marginally more, but that's all it takes to get the hull flying and that little bit of extra speed.
Let's go kind of high, okay? Slow.
Oh, he got his light wind mode back again. Right-hand side of screen, right on the Adrenaline Lounge is New Zealand. That was good news for the Spanish last time. Spain have split the course, though. They're trying to keep it simple out there. Who's got it right? I imagine both teams would be more than happy to get out of this with a first and a second wherever they finished. But there's something nice about winning a race. And Spain, well, they've got that little mojo back.
Yeah, big trim, Joey.
Vamos.
So Spain in first, New Zealand in second, the USA in third, then Switzerland and Great Britain right now, your top 5. Let's go down on the water. Lisa Darman, what are you seeing? And are you seeing any pressure building? Where is the favored side of the course?
So right now, the New Zealand team, they've got their hull out of the water, that H1 mode, compared to Spain on the other side of the course. The other thing is why I like New Zealand's strategy is they will turn left around this next gate, and they'll just have to do one more maneuver into the mark. So the pattern that they're doing this race is what Spain did in the previous race. So to me, they did that rough maneuver down the bottom, and that's where they did the loss, but I think it will come into their advantage at the end. But now Spain has their hull up as well, so it's going to be super tight.
Almost identical to what we saw in the last race, Stevie, with New Zealand in the same position that Spain was in, and Spain in the position the Americans were in. And we saw that play out for Spain getting the victory.
Spain have definitely got to do 2 more maneuvers here. So do they do it early, right in front of New Zealand, and take the left turn and try and block the path of New Zealand, or do they do it later and split the course, head back towards the Nobu Lounge? Last time we saw the US chose to do the move late. Spain might do it early. Yes, look at that. They look to turn inside. They block New Zealand off. I think that's a strong tactical move. There you go. He's forced an extra maneuver onto New Zealand. Burling didn't want to follow in the disturbed wind. Great move by Diego Botín. He's really thought that one out there. He's done well. He now just has 1 more maneuver to do. New Zealand have 2 more maneuvers to do. Tactical racing by the Spanish there. Saw it early. Nice move. But it's still going to come down to who finds the next big gust of wind. But for Spanish fans to see that hull up in the air, I think that's got to be pretty good news for the Spanish. Sailing away with just 1 more maneuver to do. Can they keep it clean on this downwind leg? Because New Zealand, they've got another 2 to do.
Spain already have winners of an event this year earlier in Los Angeles in the port of LA. So they're looking to make it 2. If they get a big victory here, that would give them 2 wins out of 3 races on day number 1. But remember, 2 more races coming tomorrow before we cut the fleet. And then it is USA in third. Have they chosen wisely as they follow New Zealand? A top 3 finish for Taylor Canfield. The Americans would set them up nicely for tomorrow.
Yeah, and very different tactical situation as well, because they weren't in a boat on boat. They're just racing. Right. How do I sail smoothly and fast around the course? Probably is more efficient to do that turn when you're going downwind. Now, Spain had to do something. They at least forced the decision on Burling, so I like what the Spanish did, because otherwise it was an easy advantage. Burling, as we see now, the boats line up. Switzerland, Schneider, he needs a good race. He's getting a good race. Great to see from then Denmark, the wind whisperer Nathan Outridge. Well, he's scrapping in the middle of the pack again, but consistency's king. And now, as we see on our ladder lines down here, Botín and the Spanish crew look like they're ahead of New Zealand, but New Zealand have the right of way. If it's close, Spain have got to keep clear. But look at the speed, nearly 7 kilometers now faster on board that Spanish boat. And they're going to extend away as they head down the course here. Speeds on the top left and on the top of the wings. Just
look at that lead growing.
Read well for the Spanish, and a hull up in the air. They've got 1 hull out of the water. They're going so much faster because of it. And look at that gain line extend out. 57, 58, 59. Big lead.
Spanish currently sailing at 24.5 kilometers an hour, while the Kiwis significantly slower at 18, showing just how big that difference is between that H1 mode and H2.
The big question is, Stevie, are they online to get around that gate? Can they take it in and just make that small final left-hand turn for the finish line?
They can go pretty slow at the end, but all I'd say is tactically now they're in a pretty unassailable position, because they'll be able to just go really slow, but they're on the inside of New Zealand now. I mean, not only have they got a big lead over New Zealand now, so that maneuver at the top,
move of the match.
Spain turning inside, that was great tactical racing, saw the opportunity, gave himself the chance, I'm going to lose early to gain long term, and that's so often the battle. So this Spanish crew here, sort of think of them as a bit of a young crew. They're not really that young anymore. They're top performers on the Olympic stage, and that was a top move against, well, let's face it, one of the greats of world sailing in Peter Burling and his New Zealand team.
And for Diego Botín and the Spanish, this will be back-to-back victories on day number 1. Good opportunity to wish Diego Botín a happy birthday, born on Christmas Day. Not this last one, but that's when his birthday is, on Christmas Day, and we haven't seen him since then. So the Spanish looking to make it 2 wins in a row, and New Zealand, they'll do a great job of salvaging this, Stevie. Even though they'll finish in 2nd place more than likely, they'll have a 1st, a 2nd, and then that one bad race, the 10th. All credit, though, goes to Spain. The move of the match coming on the penultimate leg as Spain gets the win again in race 3.
Muy bien, tíos.
Good to see here that USA has held on to that third place position. Really impressive day from them, you know, new team, and really just giving the other teams a run for their money.
Did not start out well for the Americans. They finished 9th in race number 1. They came back for the 2nd in race number 2, and it looks like they're going to get a 3rd here in race number 3. And to Stevie's points, all about the averages. You need to get your point average being, and 10 points for the winner. Americans are going to love these points.
Well, they just started well, Todd. I mean, like I said, you know, he has come in and he has dominated. Not dominated is not the right word. He has started very, very well in an environment where starting's king.
Peter Burling will come across with New Zealand finishing in 2nd place to go with that 10th in race number 2 and 1st in race number 1. The Americans looking good in race number 3. Again, their account looks like this: a 9, a 2, and a 3.
It's going to be tight back in the pack here, Todd. That's one thing I know for sure, and there's absolutely crucial points for the final. Good news for them, but here we go. Right-hand side of screen, Rockwall, Denmark. They are on the inside of Australia, Great Britain, but a long way away from each other. Canada, they spin inside. They own the mark. They're going to be very, very slow. There's going to be an absolute pile-up at that mark as we see the Swiss coming through in 4th. Good result. Sorry, 3rd for the Swiss. Good result for them.
Probably going to go out again here.
It's 4th for the Swiss, isn't it? Yeah, we see Canada coming in 5th here, and it's going to be an absolute pile-up. Australia have to go round the outside of Canada here. Replay of race 1.
Protesting that, not giving us enough room.
Not enough room there, umpire.
CJ, look at that. CJ and Phil Robertson asked the question. It's very like the situation in Mark 1.
Really close.
Coming up all the way.
Once they exit the mark, if they are still over that, Canada have got to keep clear of Australia.
Come on, he stopped me sailing my proper course to the finish here, Craig.
Good angle.
He's forced me higher than my proper course.
Up 5, please, Phil.
Phil Robertson getting pretty irate with the umpires here, and Paul Campbell-James calming him down. First hull up on board Australia. Canada's hull, that pops up out of the water now, and it's now a straight line sprint. Canada have got to be careful of Australia here, but he looks like he's done enough.
That, boys, was awesome. Nice work. Nice last run, mate.
And Canada gets 5th ahead of Australia, who finished in 6th. Emirates GBR will finish in 7th.
And you know why he said it was awesome? Because they were right at the back at Mark 1, weren't they? And look at that again. Harry Houdini mode on for the Canadians. Phil Robertson's dug them out of a hole. As Denmark in 8th. They're not going to like that. Denmark went backwards. Canada went forwards.
And look at this, the sprint to the very finish. And it looks like France is just going to edge out Eric Heil and the Germans.
This leaderboard's going to be so interesting to look at, Todd. It's going to be so tight. All going to be to play for tomorrow, that is for sure.
Great racing today, and the 2 big winners have got to be Spain and New Zealand as they take the top spots. Spain, though, winning races 2 and 3.
And it was all about the tricky slow boat tactics at this start line. See all the boats mostly paralleling the line, really trying to slow themselves down. Now the Spanish were the slippery ones here. There was no room for them initially, but as the other boats moved down the line, they managed to just get behind the USA boat and get to that start line just before the gun. When the gun went, the Spanish were less than a meter behind the line. Now they weren't the fastest boat on the course. That went to the Kiwis, but they were closest to this optimum point and they had a great angle to the line.
Well, and then when we see that laid out in front of us in numbers, it does give us a fairly clear picture again. Look how fast the Spanish managed to go, and I think a large part of that's just being out in front. They sail in clearer wind. You've got more horsepower available to you. New Zealand, well, they know how to sail less distance. That's one of their textbook moves, but it was a key manoeuvre late on. Made New Zealand have to do one more manoeuvre with that aggressive turn in by Spain at the top. Devil's in the detail for France and Germany. They've got to get that boat speed a bit faster.
Well, fleet race number 1, Stevie, not sure exactly what we're going to get, and everyone crowding at the line, but again, it was New Zealand putting themselves in the perfect position.
Yeah, I think they just seem to come dialed in. Emily's alluded to it a lot over the day already, is that just with this 29-metre wing, Blair Took, the wing trimmer on board that boat, has got a good handle of it. And another thing we learned on these slalom courses, you want to be in the lead at Mark 1.
No follow leader on that one as New Zealand just raced away with a massive lead to get the victory in race number 1. Quick turnaround for race number 2, and the Rolex best time start goes the way of the Germans. Eric Heil did not have a great start in race number 1, had a great start in the second going.
He did. He got off the line here. They're all learning. They're all talking with their coaches on the shore. Another thing we saw today was a lot of the sailors, but it's just fine margins. And the US and Taylor Canfield, well, possibly the starter of the day overall on board that US boat. And we thought at this stage, here it is, Taylor, first race win in Sail GP. But this moment here, they got tangled up with Emirates Great Britain on the left-hand side of our screen. They lost all their speed. And, well, those Spanish, they know how to take advantage. Vamos Galos, and they did that indeed. They slingshot around the outside, went from a last in race 1, turned it into a win in race 2, got the wheels back on the wagon.
And in race number 3, the Spanish were back at it again. Emily, this time, obviously just taking a page out of race number 2. Get in front, stay in front.
Exactly. Being in the front of the pack just meant you were so clear of all of these car parks, not having to deal with penalties, giving boats space. It just continued to stretch their lead.
And this was the moment here. Spain, it would have been easy for them to carry straight on or dip behind, try and keep their speed, but no, they turned the boat, they used the rules they had. Tactically aggressive move, forced New Zealand into 2 more manoeuvres, and that was the move there. Sharp work by Diego and crew.
So Spain wins 2 races on the day. As we take a look at the overall standings after 3 fleet races, it is Spain with a 1-point lead over the Kiwis, 21-20. Then you've got a pile up here with USA, Canada, both on 19th. France in there in 5th at 17, and then 2 teams on 16. So Stevie, for my money, you got to think that top 17 right now are the ones in the running. We got 2 more fleet races tomorrow. 7 teams still available for 3 spots.
Yeah, I think it's all on tomorrow, Todd. This is high scoring event, all to play for.